Happy Halloween, my pretties! Who else is really excited for the Wicked movie? I know I am. First of all, Wicked is my favorite Broadway show of all time. Not only that, but the original 1939 Wizard of Oz movie is my all-time favorite movie. I absolutely adore the world of Oz. In fact, in college, I did a paper where I compared 3 different Oz stories, with the Wizard of Oz, the Wiz, and Wicked. But to focus on Wicked in particular, it has one of the best soundtracks ever, clever writing, likable characters, one of the best female friendships of all time, and actually did a successful job of making the Wicked Witch of the West into a sympathetic and complex character in a way that works, unlike Maleficent or Cruella. So as you can tell, I'm a very big fan of Wicked, and therefore am excited about the movie adaptation. After all, I did once make my own fan cast for the Wicked movie years ago. From what's been released, I do love what I see so far. There are a few issues I have, but it's mostly positive. But before I start, keep in mind that this is just my opinion, so don't be about it. Now, without any further delay, let's dive right on in. The first thing I'm gonna cover is my thoughts on the cast. I actually love the casting for Wicked, for the most part. In all honesty, this is one of the biggest things you need to get right, because if you don't have a great cast, you're not gonna get very invested in the characters. Though the directing could also make a mess of that. Anyway, let's start with Fiyero, the dashing but arrogant love interest that becomes more humble thanks to Elphaba, played by Jonathan Bailey. First of all, I love the name Fiyero. Secondly, this is a casting choice that I am disappointed by. Don't get me wrong, it has nothing to do with Jonathan Bailey's talents, because he's actually very talented. He's an actor that has a lot of charm and charisma, has a great singing voice, and even has a musical theater background. My issue comes from the fact that this would have been a great opportunity to cast a man of color in the role. For those of you who aren't aware, in the original book that the musical is based on, Fiyero was actually described as having brown skin. His exact race was never really specified from my understanding, but this wasn't translated into the musical for some reason, and considering this movie adaptation is planning on adding elements from the original book, this was a missed opportunity to fix this pretty egregious change. However, this is no way, shape, or form the fault of Jonathan Bailey, especially since the fact that Fiyero was originally brown isn't very common knowledge to the public. I have no doubt in my mind that he's going to do a incredible job as Fiyero due to his acting and singing abilities. Plus, from what I've seen so far, he's really great in the role and captures the essence of Fiyero. It's just that it's a disappointment not to cast a man of color in the role, and since they're adding elements from the original book, they had to know that Fiyero was originally a man of color. However, the rest of the cast is still pretty diverse, including Michelle Yeoh as Madame Morrible. We all know that Michelle Yeoh is a amazing actress, so there's no doubt that she's going to truly deliver a phenomenal performance as Madame Morrible. The character comes off at first as a nurturing figure to Elphaba, only to hide her truly insidious intentions. So I'm definitely excited to see Michelle Yeoh absolutely nail it, because she's very versatile and can play characters that are pompous and sinister, but also be believable as someone who is warm and loving, which will make Madame Morrible's deception all the more convincing. She's gonna knock it out of the ocean. I don't know if she can sing, but Madame Morrible isn't a role that sings that much and doesn't have any big numbers, so as long as her singing is listenable, which I hope it is, that shouldn't be a problem. Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz is definitely an interesting choice, but one that's my least favorite of the cast. The actor is critically acclaimed in many projects and is clearly talented. However, while he does a lot of jazz music, there's nothing that I can find about him actually singing. I know the Wizard never has the best voice in the cast in any of the productions, but the actors they cast still can sing and are full of energy. Plus, unlike Madame Morrible, he does have a big musical number with the song Wonderful, so the actor needs to be able to sing. From what I've heard of him sing, from the little I could gather, it's mediocre at best. Though I guess you could argue that it's a show that the Wizard has more ambition than actual talent. Plus, I haven't seen much of his work, but from what I've seen, his energy is too low-key for someone like the Wizard of Oz, who is full of personality and grand high energy. That's an issue because one of the reasons his deception works is because the character is full of so much charm and charisma and has an energy that's so infectious. I don't see that from him in the clips that I've seen, but maybe he'll surprise me. He's a great actor, but it's true that no actor, no matter how talented, can actually play every role. But I'm still holding out hope that he's going to surprise me in the role. Peter Dinklage as the voice of Dr. Dillamond is pretty good. He has a gruffness to his voice that works for a talking goat, but can also be sincere and gentle, which is important for someone like Dr. Dillamond. I don't know much about his singing abilities, but just like Madame Morrible, the character doesn't really need a great singing voice, especially since his singing is more of a character voice in the song Something Bad, where the great singing is provided by Elphaba. Peter Dinklage isn't known for playing characters like Dr. Dillamond, as he tends to play grumpy characters, but he has the talent to pull it off, and I love what I'm seeing from him so far. Ethan Slater is a great choice for the role of Bach. The character is very awkward and dorky, which Ethan Slater has proven he can do flawlessly with his Tony-nominated performance as SpongeBob in the SpongeBob SquarePants musical. Not to mention he can sing and be full of personality. With newcomer Marissa Bode as Nessa Rose, I can't say much about her acting and singing abilities due to this being her debut role. However, one of Nessa's most defining traits is her extraordinary beauty, which Marissa most definitely is. Plus, it's absolutely mermazing that they got an actual disabled woman to play the role of Nessa Rose, and I truly hope that she manages to get more work after this. That's all I can say for now, because I don't really have much to work off of when talking about a newcomer with no prior work to compare. Now we move on to one of the big ones, Ariana Grande as Glinda. First of all, yes, I'm aware that I originally fan cast her as Elphaba, but honestly I don't know what I was thinking because she would have been a terrible Elphaba. Secondly, I was concerned about Ariana as Glinda because her acting in the past hasn't exactly been the most cinematic. However, she had the approval of the original Glinda, Kristen Chenoweth, so that made me more open to it. Plus, she has a bubbly quality to her that works for the character. Not to mention, when I saw the leaked footage of her singing operatic in the role, I knew she was at least gonna slay in terms of the vocals, which I never doubted because she is obviously a phenomenal vocalist. From what I've seen of her in the role, I honestly think she's gonna be one of the major highlights. She's comedic, but not in a way that feels reminiscent of her victorious days. She has an ethereal essence to her, a bubbly nature, comes off as condescending, and has a superiority complex, but deep down has a good heart. So I have no doubt in my mind that she's going to nail this role. It feels like Ariana really pushed herself, which makes sense because of how Wicked means a lot to her, which she has said countless times before she was ever cast in the role, so it's clear that she truly wants to do Glinda justice. But absolutely no one, not even Ariana Grande, will be able to compete with the true star of the movie, and that is Cynthia Erivo as the Wicked Witch herself, Elphaba. This woman is an absolutely brilliant talent. She's a gifted actress, and she's a phenomenal singer. Her vocals so far have shown that she's going to absolutely kill it during the musical numbers. Before her casting was announced, she was among my top 5 fan casts for Elphaba, and for good reason. Plus, it's more amazing that out of all the women that got the role, it was a black woman. Sure, it can be considered surface level rep due to the fact that she's gonna have green skin, but it also makes sense. A big part of Wicked is that you shouldn't judge someone for how they look or take them at face value. That's something a lot of people of color, including black people, can relate to. So it's all too perfect to have the character who is judged for the color of her skin and justifiably angry with how the world treats her due to something that she has no control over be played by someone who knows that experience all too well. It adds a layer of depth to the casting, but even if that wasn't the case, Cynthia just embodies the character with every fiber of her being. She also captures the social awkwardness, mischievousness, sass, and headstrong nature of the character. This is perfect casting, and she'll undeniably be the best part of the movie. The rest of the cast seems great as well. I even see Keala Settle is in the movie as a character that was created solely for the film. I hope she gets to sing because she has a killer voice. So the casting is pretty great so far, with the only issues being that I'm not sure about Jeff Goldblum, and I wish a man of color was cast as Fiyero. So no matter what, at least we can say that the casting is more amazing and will deliver phenomenal performances. An important element with a movie like Wicked is the visuals, and they're honestly great. I love how they use a mixture of practical and special effects, which should be what most movies do, because it'll keep the visuals from becoming dated in 10 years from now, or even already be dated because of bad CGI. The sets look lavish and grand, but also tangible. However, the CGI is also there to help make things bigger and grander, because let's face it, there are limitations if there isn't any CGI, because you can't just create the Grand Emerald City from scratch scratch without going insanely over budget, which would also take like years and years. There are parts where I feel the color grading could be better, but that's probably because of YouTube ruining the quality. Trust me, YouTube does often ruin the quality of things. However, I do feel like this movie should have been filmed on a film camera instead of using a digital camera, as well as tried to give a more technicolor look like the 1939 film. That just has a much more appealing color palette and look to it. However, the sets still look incredible and the special effects are amazing. I don't think it's devoid of color like a lot of people say, there's just some parts that could be better. Especially when you compare it to a lot of the Disney live-action remakes like Peter Pan and Wendy, Beauty and the Beast, and The Lion King to name a few. It's visually stunning and looks like the world was brought to life. Not to mention the visual design is certainly better than the absolutely hideous, dull, and lifeless look of the terrible film adaptation of The Wiz. It also makes sense that they use CGI animals instead of making people dress up as animals like in The Wizard of Oz or the stage version of Wicked. That just wouldn't work with the vibe of the film and make it feel too cheap. Normally, I'm one for prosthetics and practical effects, but in this case, it really wouldn't work. As for the costuming, they look amazing. Madame Morbo looks absolutely spectacular. The background characters have fun designs. Clearly the standout wardrobe will be Glinda. All of her outfits so far look absolutely fabulous and gorgeous. They're so lavish, intricate, fun, and most of all, just look phenomenal. A lot are commenting on her pink bubble dress. However, my personal favorite is her periwinkle blue dress. It honestly looks like a more subdued version of Billy Burke's pink dress from the 1939 film. Her outfits are definitely going to be a major highlight visually. As for Elphaba's look, I personally love it. I'm really happy to see that they actually painted Cynthia green instead of using CGI. It looks much more organic. Not to mention, I love that they use braids for her hairstyle as it allows her to still show off that she's a black woman, despite the fact that she has green skin. Her wardrobe as the Wicked Witch is spot on, and I love that it's tied into a ponytail so that her hair can still show off without it getting in Elphaba's way when she flies. It just suits her perfectly. I also love how all the background students at Shiz University are wearing their blue uniforms while Elphaba is wearing a black version of it and Glinda is wearing a pink version of it that are both tailored to their personal styles. It helps to show their strong personalities and how they stand out. Elphaba knows that she stands out no matter what and just embraces it, whereas Glinda does all she can to stand out and steal the attention. Also, the design of the silver slippers are stunning, but they should also be showing them as Ruby when they are on Dorothy because of how in the original show they turned Ruby red when Elphaba used magic on them to give Nessa the ability to walk, which was accomplished by a switch that would turn on to make the shoes turn red. That was an awesome detail that combined the original silver slippers from the original Wizard of Oz books and the iconic Ruby slippers from the 1939 film. Plus, I will be honest, Ruby red is far more striking a color than silver. It's more memorable. But then again, there was no way these slippers were ever going to be better than the Ruby slippers. So overall, while the visuals aren't totally perfect, they come pretty close, and it's gonna be a truly gorgeous film to behold in my opinion. As many have pointed out, they aren't really showing the musical sequences very much. What I mean by this is they aren't showing the characters actually singing, but rather playing the music and showing moments from the musical sequences without letting us actually see the characters sing. This is done so they don't alienate the audience that hates musicals. This is a problem you see with a lot of the marketing for movie musicals nowadays. However, it's freaking Wicked for Poseidon's sake. It's one of the most famous Broadway musicals of all time. If you don't know it's a musical, you've clearly been living under a rock. But then again, I never understood why anyone wouldn't love musicals, so long as the music is good. It's merely a different medium for telling stories, just like animation. Plus, they're really just making those of us who are true Wicked fans, the musical fans, frustrated by not showing any of it. Say what you want about the Disney live-action remakes, cause there's plenty to be said there, but at least they don't try to hide the fact that they're musicals. They embrace it. Not very well, but still. With the exception of The Little Mermaid, of course. With the exception of Scuttlebutt, that song can just rot in the depths of Tartarus. From what I've heard of the music, which is mostly just defying gravity and popular, they sound great, especially the former, but start marketing musicals as musicals already. Okay, so as I was working on this video, Universal finally released actual clips of the characters singing the songs. Yes, I am happy about that, and they sound amazing. However, the movie is only a little over a month away, and they're only now doing this when they should have done it from the very beginning. Better late than never, I guess, but still. Okay, so let's address the killer whale in the room. First of all, it's really pointless to adapt Wicked into 2 movies, especially when this movie is about the same length as the original Broadway show. I get expanding on it so you can add more elements from the original book, and so you can add more songs in order to get that Best Original Song nomination. However, you shouldn't be expanding it any more than half an hour. Yes, that may seem long for a movie musical, but you forget that The Sound of Music and Les Miserables exist and are so long that the DVDs have them split up into 2 discs. I'm just afraid that they're gonna add too much to the point where it drags on and really slows down the flow of the story. I mean, how much material can you add from the book to pad out the runtime, especially when the original book isn't exactly very beloved to begin with, unlike the musical it's based on. Why is that? Because that required a lot of revisionism and trimming the fat to take something that people generally didn't like and make it into something truly great. I'm guessing it's gonna end after defying gravity just like in Act 1 of the show, but if that's the case, what is Dorothy doing here when she didn't come into play until the later half of Act 2? That brings me to another issue I have, which is them showing Dorothy Gale and her crew. First of all, this shouldn't be a spoiler considering the Broadway musical has been around almost 20 years, but Fiyero turns into the Scarecrow and Bach turns into the Tin Man, so I'm wondering how they're gonna structure that in this movie. Like I said, Dorothy didn't come to Oz until after Fiyero and Bach were transformed. The Silver Slippers were turned into Ruby Slippers, and it happened years after the events of Act 1. This makes me worried about how they're gonna structure this film because it sounds a little bit messy. I'm not opposed to them including Dorothy, but the way they're doing it doesn't make sense, and if they're gonna make it into 2 movies, they should have waited until the second movie. There's also the concern with the new characters. I heard that Glinda's friends were characters from the original book, but I don't like their inclusion. Part of what makes Glinda's friendship with Elphaba so special is that she was her only real, genuine friend. Someone Glinda didn't have to pretend for, work to impress, or act perfect and good all the time for. They appear to be her yes man, but that doesn't seem that necessary, as she already had a crowd of people at Shiz that flocked to her, adoring her and hanging on her every word. So why add 2 pointless characters? There are also some characters that were added simply for the movie, like Keala Settle's character. Now, I love Keala Settle, but I don't think they should create a whole new character just because. We don't know what point she'll have, and if she doesn't have one, it's a waste of Keala Settle's amazing talent. So if you couldn't tell, I'm excited about this movie, but I'm also very concerned and skeptical. That's definitely natural when it's a movie adaptation to something you love so dearly. The movie still won't be released for another month, so it's hard to know if it'll be any good. However, I absolutely plan to see it because whether or not it'll be good, there clearly will be a lot of things to admire about it. I doubt it'll be as good as the stage musical, but I do hope that it'll be good and not end up like certain movie musicals that tend to butcher the source material. I will likely make a video about my thoughts on the movie when it comes out, so let's just hope it'll be a wicked good time. And those were my thoughts on the Wicked movie so far. What did you guys think? Did you agree with anything I said? What are your thoughts on Wicked so far? Let me know in the comments. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also follow me on my other social media accounts in the links below. I'm the Wicked Merman, and there's no place like home.